Hello and welcome to Campaign Craft. Today we're going to talk about 3.75 considerations before running games for after-school programs or youth groups. Now, my qualifications here, I spent about 7 years as a youth pastor before getting a different position in my church, and I also spent about 3 years working as a teacher's aide and teaching in after-school programs for martial arts classes. So I've worked inside of both systems that I'm going to be talking about today. Also, I've been a DM for give or take 7 or 8 years now. And in that time, here are a few considerations to take into mind before starting this venture. This venture that could be a wonderful time, positively impacting young... We need speed bumps on our roads. A great time positively impacting young people and introducing them to our hobby. One of the considerations is don't go easy on them. You are at the stage where you are shaping their view of what this game is. And if they get a soft-handed approach, they're going to expect that forever. And they're going to run into DMs that don't play like that. And those DMs aren't wrong for doing so. So don't be afraid to kill their characters. I had a D&D game running in my youth group. It started in medias res. They were kidnapped and chained up in a cult dungeon. They had to fight their way out. They had to get their way out of their chains. They had to fight their way through cultists. They had to avoid alerting too many cultists. And here's the thing. One character hit 0 HP and he rolled the death saves, and there was a big cheer when he came back to life. So the threat made the survival more impactful. But another character, him and his buddy tried to solo the boss because they split the party and divided up. And he died because of something him and his ally were doing, right? So it wasn't like a balancing issue. That's how the dice fell. That was a real story that was told that based on their actual decisions. And I took his character sheet and I tore it in half. And I did that for every character that died in that campaign. And you know what? They didn't cry. They didn't weep. They didn't hate me. They kept showing up for more sessions. They had a great time every time. Don't go easy on them. Second, teach as you go. I don't really mean like moral lessons or life lessons. I mean teach the game, and not just the rules, but the unwritten rules, the how to play. For instance, if I had characters who, the campaign was called 100 Heists. And on the first heist, they had done all this research, they had laid all this groundwork, and they had even found a journal entry saying when the owner of the house was going to be back. And then I took my phone out and I put a 1-hour timer on it and I laid it on the table. The players then commenced to, after they had discovered this dungeon, now I don't do theater of the mind. I laid out every single tile of this dungeon. And so we had players on one side of a door, players on another side of the door, and they were trying to break the door down. They had gone into the dungeon through one route, one group of them had, and into the dungeon from another route, another group of them had, and they had both gotten to different sides of this door. And if they looked on the table, they would see the entire dungeon laid out with a route to go around to get through that door. And so they were rolling to knock the door down. And it was just as predictable as possible. The timer on the owner coming back came out. He had these knights with runes all over their armor that was way too high level for the party, and that was by design. But they waited until this guy came home, and then this entire party, I broke my own rule. I went a little easy on them. They did not get TPK'd. They instead got non-lethal damage and woke up in chains in the dungeon, and then they got to escape through the sewers and meet up with the Thieves Guild. The point is, they learned to not wake up the dungeon. And I taught them that phrase. I told them, you woke up the dungeon, right? Don't split the party. They learned that in the last game where they got killed. don't wake up the dungeon. These different rules of how to play D&D tactically, how to play D&D intelligently, like concentrate fire on one enemy at a time, that sort of thing. Teach those as you go. Teach the rules, teach the strategies, teach the way you play the game, like following the left wall around the dungeon, like tapping things with a 10-foot pole as you go, like, checking for traps, different things like that, looking for secrets to find treasure. Next, be aware of parents. And I'm not saying beware of parents. I'm saying be aware of parents. They have a say in what goes on in their kids' lives. They have a say in what their kids participate in, and they have a right to know what's going on at your table, right? If they want to sit in, if they want to hang out, if they want to chat, if they want to ask questions for you to answer, be open to all of those things. We're going to be having an ongoing interaction with their parents. It's 3.25. Know your place, right? There is a story. It's recorded in one of those books, The Elusive Shift or Game Wizards. One of those books by, I think it's John Patterson, of one of the founders of D&D at a convention when it started to become popular among kids. And he realized all of this pulpy content that would have been fine with a group of peers. Yeah, remember, they're not your peers, right? All of this pulpy content, like women shackled naked to a sacrificial altar, he was going to have to tweak that for the 12 and 14-year-olds at his table. And you're going to have to do the same. Next, maintain table standards. You don't need to be strict, but there needs to be a level of class and decency that you require of everyone around your table. You need to be reining in behavior that would be unacceptable in any social situation, and behavior that might be acceptable among adults, but people in the under 18 group don't need to be participating in, at least not with your blessing, so to speak. So maintain table standards. Finally, 3.75, consider non-D&D games. And this is a little bit weird. I don't like this one, but it really is a real consideration. And I'm not telling you have to, but a lot of moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents still remember the Satanic Panic. And I know. But the name Dungeons and Dragons carries baggage, which is really weird because Gary Gygax was he was a Christian, but, people are going to think what they're going to think. And you don't need to create an unnecessary stumbling block to start your program, to get something started, to, plug in and give back to your community. For instance, I've been working on my tabletop role-playing systems, Valleys and Voyages, V&V, for years. And I ran it at my church. And when one of the kids said, we're playing D&D, and one of the moms was like, my kid isn't, we had a meeting that turned out to be very cordial, and I was able to explain, no, here are the games we've been running, and they actually had a lot of allegorical meanings that was, drawing from the Bible, drawing from theology, kind of like C.S. Lewis type of things, things that you might see in Lord of the Rings, something you might see in Pilgrim's Progress, that sort of influence. And they were like, oh, wow. And it became a really positive thing. But one of the things was just having the simple answer, oh, no, we're not playing D&D. We're playing this other thing. We're playing Valleys and Voyages. We're playing Shadowdark. We're playing Morkborg. Actually, that's probably worse. Don't. We're playing 13th Age. We're playing Rifts. We're playing Pathfinder. None of those names have the brand recognition that Dungeons & Dragons have, and therefore none of them come with the same baggage that Dungeons & Dragons has. And so if you play literally any game, 13th Age is a good example. It's based on D&D. It's a different game, different system, similar enough. It's a bit rules light. Play something like that. Play Shadowdark. Shadowdark it's classic D&D with a streamlined system, and they'll have a great time. You can tear up their character sheets left and right and leave them, crying in the corner. Just being wise about how you're introducing this hobby, being wise about how you're presenting it. And know that you'll get pushback if you play D&D in certain contexts. And if you're ready for that, if you're ready to sit down and explain to 5 different parents that the content in the game is specifically the content that you put there, right? You determine the encounters, you determine the NPCs, you determine the fantasy. It's not just Wizards of the Coast. It's not just Dungeons and Dragons. If you're prepared to do that, do it. But just be aware that that conversation is more than likely going to happen if you try to get this started in a public school or in a church environment. Because at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to parent, and it's your responsibility to, respect that. Take that into consideration for what you present, and be open with them when that conversation happens so they can make the decision that's best for their family. I've been DM Sleeper, and this is Campaign Craft. I hope that this helps you craft your campaign to make a positive impact on your community. Have a great night.